What up with y'all? It's your boy Sel. Back here with another video. Today's video is a little different. We're going to be watching a Jubilee video. Pretty interesting video. It's a conversation between African and African American diaspora. Without further ado, let's get into it.
Slavery affected my family.
Yeah, I mean, that's just evident in my last name, King. I mean, that's the brand of the slave owner that put that name on my family all those years ago, and I'm still wearing it in those ways, along with the compounded, economic disparity, social disparity, mental trauma, all of that. I mean, it's tethered forever.
I think for me, growing up in Los Angeles, California in the early 1960s, there was a stereotype that I didn't want to be black. I didn't want to be African because we come from Africa or we're slaves. So I want to be a Chinese boy. I want to be Bruce Lee. So growing up like that, I didn't like myself and who I was. I didn't like the color of my skin or the way that I spoke. So I emulated other people. I wanted to be something that I was not.
Slavery didn't affect my family, but we did suffer a different type of slavery back home. Like, we went through colonization. Like, I am Bamileke. There was a massacre of Bamileke. You guys can look it up. They killed more than 300,000 of my people because we didn't want to assimilate to the French culture. But it's still nothing compared to what you guys' ancestors been through,
I wouldn't want to minimize that pain, though. What you just said hurt me, that 300,000 people were killed because they would not conform to the colonization of the French people. So that is just as painful and hurtful as the trauma that we.
I like this, man. This is beautiful to see. When you see Africans, especially sub-Saharan Africans and African Americans, there's always this it's like an unsaid competition. Like, growing up, there was always this little divide between African Americans and Africans, right? Whether it be because of history, whether it be just both being victims of white supremacy. That's literally what it was. Both being somewhat victims of white supremacy, whether it be here in Africa or here. It's beautiful to see this because nobody is minimizing each other's pain. So, old head right here said, I don't want to minimize your pain of your people. But, you might run into some people that say, what y'all went through was nothing. What we went through was something, right? And I feel like that's how you make a divide, right? When you kind of dismiss other people's pain, right? And to see them all come together, and kind of acknowledge each other's shared pain under all this, bro. It's nice to see, man.
That you have went through and your family, even though we also had our own type of slavery. We had apartheid at the time, where the Dutch people took over and they wanted to just have South Africa, Namibia, and I think other countries where we could only just speak Dutch. It's somehow still happening even now. There's a place in South Africa where it's called Orania, and it's just Dutch people there. No black person is even allowed there. So we still somehow feel that oppression even now, but it's nothing compared to what your ancestral history, has gone through. I'm somehow happy that you guys have forgiven it, even though you haven't forgotten it. Have you forgiven it? Like your face,
Do that. But me personally, no, I haven't. But I want to work through the change. But no, I have not forgiven because it's a system that's still going on. And from what I'm hearing from you guys, there's a system that's still going on in Africa as well, and it's a war on us.
Man, I keep pausing the video, man, because it's so amazing to see that, bro. You get on these social media apps, bro, and these people, it's like Africans and African Americans having the stupidest diaspora wars. He made, it just shows, the parallel. She's South African and they're African American. Their torture was worse, but then it's the same thing in everywhere, right? Everybody went through the same thing. We know this, right? We know not all black people or people not everybody went through the same. I don't thought that, my people was kicking ass, you feel me? We wasn't going like that. I just make that joke because it's a lot of East Africans that have that perspective, especially Horners that have that perspective, oh yeah, y'all niggas went through that. We ain't, you know what I mean?
Cause of poverty among black people in America.
I also think, the crucial missing point when we talk about economic disparity, time is the most valuable currency. And if you have like a stock that's like the American dream is the stock, and during all that time, all that asset, the American dream was appreciating, and you're not allowed to take out business loans, you're not allowed to read, you're not allowed to write, you had to first fight to become 3/5 of a citizen, then you got Jim Crow, and then you got everything else. It's like you're now having to buy in at a price so high because the time is irreparable. You can't get that back. One black person today cannot, in one lifetime, achieve what generations of white families were able to do simply because.
This is an argument that a lot of conservatives and conservative Republicans in this country like to act like is not true. I have friends who of this belief, right? And I share beliefs on both sides, whether it's conservative or liberal. You have a group of people for a long time who were not even considered human. There's no way in hell that they can catch up to you, no matter what. Imagine having to convince the people that you're a human being, right? And then once they do that, there's a difference between you and them for hundreds of years, right? Slavery was 400 years. Then you had segregation. Then you had, he's telling you the timeline and how the economic gap was built. It was already there, right? When you have people for 400 years who are not even considered a part of the playing field, there's no way in hell even today they're gonna catch up, bro. You hear people trying to act like black people asking for things is out of pocket, or they're not allowed to do it, and it kind of looks unrealistic, honestly. And it's sad to say when certain people have been put down for so long, and then out of nowhere it's made to seem like everything is equal when it isn't, and nothing is equal now. Because people have had generational wealth built up, and people think motherfuckers don't know. It's funny because we can also relate this to the topic of reparations. America has given reparations to people, right? To people's wrong. Japanese Americans have received reparations. I believe German Americans receive reparations. Even some Native American Indian tribes receive some reparations. African Americans receive no reparations because, simple fact, there's no country that all of them can come back to. African Americans today in America are a mix of numerous different West African coastal countries. It was a mix of different religions of people, ethnicities of people. It was a mix of people, and these people did not come from one nation. People like Japanese Americans, they're from Japan, right? And the government in Japan, they're gonna protect their people. So therefore, reparations is distributed that way. There's no country African Americans can really trace anything back to because of one, they're mixed. They're from all types of different ethnicities. And two, there's no record for anything. There's no records for nothing. You heard it earlier in the video. You can go back to damn near a couple hundred years. There's no records of people's families. So it's a tricky one, man.
I was thinking, just like you said, from a historical standpoint, we start with slavery, then that's centuries, generations of stolen labor, like you said. Then we get into Jim Crow, which is just an extension of that. Then we have redlining, we have mass incarceration, we have events like the bombing of Tulsa and Rosewood in Florida, and all these different examples of our wealth being decimated. And I don't say that to come from a defeatist or a victim mindset, but I think if we just have an honest conversation about history and what we've.
But that's another thing, right, is when people talk about their issues that they've gone through, right, and this is a real issue, it's not a victim mindset. In history, whenever African Americans in America, this is unique to them, right? Every time they build up, they were bombed and they were fucking annihilated. Anytime they had Black Wall Street, any city, their women were taken and raped, their men were beheaded in front of the sons, and the sons had to watch all of this, and the daughters as well, just to be sure, you don't do the same shit your parents were doing. You know what I mean? So don't say victim mentality when this shit is real.
We've gone through, we've been here. Racism is definitely a big part of that. And there are a lot of successful Black Americans, a lot of millionaires, a lot of, business owners, but they're exceptions for sure for a reason. And there's a big difference, lazy or that we don't.
They say less is more, but we believe more is more. That's why we built our sportsbook.
I thought I was going to be the only one staying. I was going to be like, oh, I'm about to be like Kanye West. But, okay, there's a lot of things we can use as an excuse to hold us back, to not to reach our potential. But it's up to us to look past that. Me coming from Africa, I came here to better my life, my family. I'm the only one here. And since I have been here, there's a lot of bad things that happened to me. There's also a lot of good things that happened to me. Us African or African American, we need to like look past like racism and like just focus on our own goal. Like, what do we want to achieve? We need to stop using the word racism when we don't get something or when something don't go our way, and just keep trying, you know.
So let me jump in real quick. No disrespect, but racism exists, and I have to acknowledge it. And I can't just ignore it, but what I can do is not buy into the system. You know, if I want to do something, let me be the entrepreneur. What I believe happened in the 1960s is that we started looking for equal rights, to be equal with other people. And what we stopped doing, and I heard you talk about Tulsa, we stopped using the black-owned businesses. Now, because you guys got to understand, the Fair Housing Act in 1968, I'm 5 years old. That's when we could move off the east side of LA and move into other subcultures. So what I wanted to do at 8 years old was go to IHOP. I didn't want to go to the Ma and Pa restaurant anymore. I wanted to go to, let's go eat at the hotels. So what we did is stop supporting each other and started supporting corporate America. So the racism plays a major part, but we don't have to buy into it.
I ain't gonna lie. Old head just educated me. I ain't even think of it like that. You feel me? Like I said, this is conversation that should be had, right? Because I'm not African American, like I said again. Like, this is his history of his people, right? Like, you know, that's a different perspective that we can acknowledge as well. That is true. You know, the companies that we spend our top dollars are white owned. You know, they're European owned, right? They're typically owned by people that don't share our interests, and we spend our top dollar. I read some stat, African Americans in specific, they spend like billions. They spend the most money as a whole group of people as African Americans. Nobody comes close to them, right? So this is true. You know, like, you know, you support black-owned businesses. I hear what old head's saying. But sometimes, man, these black-owned businesses, I ain't gonna lie, man, they be doing too much. Just because you black-owned don't mean you getting my dollar, all right? I hear what old head said. Just because you black-owned, you ain't getting my dollar just because of that, nigga. I'm sorry, man. Some of y'all be tripping, bruh. Like, $40 a hoodie, weak-ass hoodie, $50 a shirt, a weak-ass shirt. Like, come on, man. Y'all be trying to run it up, so calm down.
I've been waiting to disagree with you, my brother. I'm waiting patiently. The thing is, even though I want to disagree with you, I get where you're coming from. When I see black people talking about racism, all that stuff, I'm like, what is wrong with these people? You guys have food, you have EBT, all this thing, and you're here shouting about somebody is racist too. Just leave that person and move on. I feel that way. Like, why are they always like complaining? But when Black Lives Matters started happening, like, I sat down, I said, I need to actually know why these people are pained. And if we look at the history, what they've done to them, like if you actually sit down, watch some documentaries, how they were maltreated, I don't think if I'm actually born, I will forgive those people. I don't care. It's easier for us Africans that were raised in Africa to feel like they're complaining because we were raised through struggle. Like, I barely even have water, and you have water, you're complaining.
We have police brutality back home too.
True.
We have, like, if you go to Cameroon and then you see how the police officer treat us, and they're black just like us, you're not even gonna believe it.
Is the topic of, you know, African issue, you know, so the lives of basic Africans back home and here is way different because, you know, but the thing is about African Americans, like I said, you don't find a group of people who have been through what they've been through to the extent that they've been through it, right? Now, I can go back home to Ethiopia and Gondar and all these places in the village, and I know these people don't have nothing, right? They have never seen like their men and all these people in the hundreds and thousands be enslaved. Like, you know, there was never a time period where somebody came there. You know, there was invaders and all these people, right? But there was always a fight back, right? Like, nobody ever came and like made them believe they were disgusting people or less than, right? Like, their dignity was always intact. When colonizers came to Africa, there's African ethnicities that they literally worked with to get on top of the country, right? You know, and other ethnicities that they valued, and other tribes and leaders that they valued, right? So, and those leaders were able to protect their people from being hurt. No part of African American culture back then was respected. Nothing at all. They weren't valued at all. Like, at all, right? There was no element that they were valued, right? While Africans, on the other hand, right, there's like groups like where I'm from where, you know, we were able to negotiate with Europeans, right? Because of, you know, we kicked their ass first, right? Like, you know, we put them in their place, and then, you know, we were able to go to toes with them and negotiate with them, right? So it's very different, this experiences of both sides, right? And, you know, people say, like, why are African Americans complaining? There is truth in that, right? Like, I'm not 100% like race is everything, because there is some truth. I do think when for hundreds and hundreds of years, it's only been one way, you know, you've been put down so much. I do think that you can break out of it, but, you know, it's hard. It's harder for them to, because their whole communities, their whole families, they've been only taught one way, and they've been finessed differently. Is that the conversation between African Americans and Africans is, you know, African Americans can also be very insensitive to African issues, right? And African people as a whole, right? Like, we all know growing up here as Africans, what we went through at the hands of African Americans. You know, they weren't accepting of us. They used to hate us. You used to get punched on if you was African, right? They used to clown you for no reason, right? And I think that fueled a lot of hatred between Africans and African Americans. It's because we were all dumb little kids, right? We made pacts with other African kids against them, right? It would get like that, right? So, you know, and obviously when everybody grew up and gained more understanding, you know, it's not really like that no more. You know, we're able to peacefully coexist. And I think as Africans, like, you know, the respect should be both ways. You know, we should have respect for African Americans. I know a lot of our parents don't, you know, but without their civil rights movements, we wouldn't be able to be here, right? So there's a lot of things that we can coexist, and I believe African Americans should show Africans some respect. I think both sides of this argument should, you know, both sides, you know, have done things to each other that's not nice, and, you know, both sides are victims, though, at the end of the day, and both sides don't have a power over the other. You have to understand that. And both sides kind of, you know, benefit from other things, right, at the expense of each other. More one side than the other. But I think there's a lot of things we can learn, right? And I'm going to link the video in the description. This is a long-ass video, but it's so much more I want to say. I didn't even say that much, but my camera can only record for like 29 minutes at a time. So that will be all for this video. Let me know, like, any points that I missed. And any points that I missed is probably like out of like, I didn't remember it at the moment. But just let me know y'all perspective on this. Share this video wherever you share cool things. Make sure it's your boy Moneymansell, and y'all better fucking subscribe. I'm sick of fucking doing these fucking videos and y'all not subscribing. So subscribe to the video. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. I love y'all. Yeah, we out.